The most fundamental illusion that shapes human experience is the belief that you are a separate, isolated individual, a lonely consciousness trapped inside a bag of skin, looking out at a world that is foreign, potentially threatening, and ultimately separate from who you are. This illusion is so pervasive, so convincing, so deeply embedded in how we think and speak and live that most people never question it. We take it as obvious, self-evident truth that I am here and everything else is out there. But what if this most basic assumption about reality is completely wrong? What if the sense of being a separate self is not a fact but a fiction, not reality, but a kind of persistent hallucination? Not what you actually are, but what you've been conditioned to believe you are. What if you were never separate from the world around you, never isolated from other people, never cut off from the source of life itself? This is perhaps the most radical and transformative insight that Alan Watts brought to Western consciousness through his interpretation of Eastern wisdom. He saw that what we call the self, this sense of being an independent, isolated, separate entity, is actually a mental construct, a story we tell ourselves, a convincing illusion that creates most of our suffering and prevents us from experiencing the profound interconnectedness that is our actual nature. Think about how this sense of separateness shapes every aspect of your experience. You feel like you're inside your body looking out, as if you're a pilot in a cockpit or a ghost in a machine. You experience your thoughts as your thoughts, your feelings as your feelings, your problems as your problems. You feel responsible for maintaining, protecting, and improving this separate self. You worry about what will happen to you. You're concerned about what others think of you. You're anxious about the future of this you that seems so real and solid and important. But when you look closely, really closely, and at this sense of self, something strange happens. The more precisely you try to locate this you, the more elusive it becomes. Where exactly is this self you're so concerned about? Is it in your head, in your heart, in your entire body? Is it your thoughts? But thoughts come and go and you remain. Is it your personality? But your personality has changed countless times throughout your life. Is it your memories? But memories are constantly shifting, and many have been forgotten entirely. When you really examine your direct experience, you discover that what you call yourself is actually a constantly changing flow of sensations, thoughts, emotions, and perceptions arising in awareness. There's no fixed, permanent, separate thing that you can point to and say, "That's me." There's experiencing happening, but no solid experiencer. There's awareness present, but no separate entity that possesses that awareness. This is what Watts meant when he talked about the illusion of the skin-encapsulated ego. We imagine that our skin defines the boundary between self and other, between inside and outside, between me and not me. But this boundary is completely arbitrary. Your body is constantly exchanging matter and energy with the environment around it. The air you breathe becomes part of your body for a moment, then returns to the world. The food you eat literally becomes your flesh and blood. The water you drink flows through every cell in your body. Where exactly does your body end and the external world begin? Is the air in your lungs part of you or part of the environment? Is the food in your stomach you or not you? The more carefully you look, the more you realize that there's no clear boundary, no definite edge where you stop, and everything else starts. You are not separate from your environment. You are a temporary pattern in the seamless flow of existence itself. But the illusion of separateness goes even deeper than the physical level. At the level of consciousness itself, there's no actual separation between the awareness that you call yours and the awareness that appears to be someone else's. When you look into someone's eyes, you're not seeing a separate consciousness trapped behind those eyes. You're seeing the same universal consciousness that's looking through your eyes, temporarily focused through a different nervous system. It's like sunlight shining through different windows. Each window creates a unique pattern of light and shadow, but it's the same sun illuminating all of them. Similarly, each person creates a unique pattern of experience, but it's the same universal consciousness experiencing itself through all these different forms. This recognition dissolves one of the deepest sources of human suffering, existential loneliness. When you believe you're a separate self, you feel fundamentally alone in the universe. Even when you're surrounded by people, Even when you're in intimate relationships, there's often an underlying sense of isolation, a feeling that no one really understands you, that you're ultimately cut off from everyone else. But when you see through the illusion of separation, you realize you were never actually alone. The consciousness looking through your eyes is the same consciousness looking through everyone else's eyes. The awareness experiencing your thoughts is the same awareness experiencing everyone's thoughts. You are not an isolated individual having a private experience. You are the universe experiencing itself from this particular point of view. This doesn't mean you lose your individuality or become some kind of bland, homogeneous blob. Your unique perspective, your particular personality, your specific way of being in the world, these remain perfectly intact. But you realize they are like waves on the ocean. Each wave has its own unique shape and character, but every wave is made of the same water. You are a unique expression of universal consciousness, just as every snowflake is a unique formation of the same frozen water. Understanding this transforms your entire relationship with other people. When you really see that the person across from you is another manifestation of the same consciousness you are, it becomes impossible to treat them as truly other. Harming them becomes literally harming yourself. Loving them becomes literally loving yourself. Helping them becomes literally helping yourself. This is why every wisdom tradition in its deepest form points to some version of the golden rule. Treat others as you would like to be treated. It's not just a nice ethical guideline, it's a statement of metaphysical fact. Others are you, experiencing themselves from a different perspective. There is no other in any ultimate sense. This recognition also transforms your relationship with nature and the environment. When you see that you're not separate from the natural world but are part of it, environmental destruction becomes literally self-destruction. Taking care of the earth becomes taking care of yourself. The health of the ecosystem becomes inseparable from your own health, because you are not separate from the ecosystem. You are a temporary formation within it. But perhaps most importantly, recognizing that you were never separate dissolves the chronic anxiety that comes from believing you're an isolated individual who must compete, defend, and strive to survive in a hostile universe. When you see that you are not separate from life but are life itself, temporarily experiencing itself as you, the burden of being a separate self simply evaporates. You stop trying to protect something that was never actually threatened. You stop trying to improve something that was never actually inadequate. You stop trying to find something you never actually lost. The desperate search for meaning, purpose, love, and security that drives so much human behavior is revealed to be unnecessary because what you were seeking outside yourself was what you were all along. This doesn't make you passive or eliminate all motivation. Instead, it allows you to act from wholeness rather than neediness, from abundance rather than scarcity, from love rather than fear. When you know you're not separate from life, you can participate fully in life without the underlying anxiety of someone trying to get something they lack or protect something they might lose. Your actions become more spontaneous and natural because they're not filtered through the constant calculations of a separate self, trying to maximize its advantage. Your relationships become more intimate because there's no longer a wall of separateness between you and others. Your creativity flows more freely because there's no separate self to get in the way of pure expression. You begin to live what's called the wisdom of insecurity, the understanding that the security you were seeking through maintaining and protecting a separate self was actually always available through recognizing that there was no separate self to protect in the first place. The very thing you thought needed security, this isolated ego, is revealed to be a mirage. This is why many spiritual traditions speak of enlightenment as a kind of death, not the death of the body, but the death of the illusion of being a separate someone. What dies is not what you really are, but what you mistakenly thought you were. What remains is what was always there, pure awareness, unlimited consciousness, the very life force of the universe expressing itself as this temporary formation of experience. But here's the beautiful paradox. When the illusion of the separate self dies, you don't become nothing. You become everything. When you stop identifying with the small, isolated, separate you, you discover that you are the vast, interconnected, unified field of consciousness in which all experience arises. You realize you are not a wave on the ocean. You are the ocean, temporarily waving. This recognition is not something you need to achieve or attain. It's not a special state you need to reach through years of meditation or spiritual practice. It's what you already are, what you've always been, what you could never not be. The only thing that's needed is to see through the illusion that convinced you otherwise. Right now, as you read these words, there is no separate you reading them. There is reading happening, but no independent reader. There is awareness present, but no separate entity possessing that awareness. There is experience occurring, but no isolated experiencer. What you call you is actually the seamless flow of life itself, temporarily organizing itself into this particular pattern of consciousness. The thoughts arising in awareness right now are not your thoughts in the sense of belonging to a separate thinker. They are thoughts arising in the universal mind, appearing in the infinite field of consciousness that is your true nature. The sensations you're experiencing are not happening to you as a separate body. They are modifications of the one consciousness, temporary formations in the endless dance of awareness, exploring itself. When you really see this, when you recognize it, not as a philosophical concept, but as the most immediate and intimate reality of your direct experience, everything changes while nothing changes. Your life continues in all its uniqueness and specificity, but the burden of being a separate someone trying to survive and succeed in an alien universe simply disappears. You realize you were never actually separate from anything. You were never isolated, never alone, never cut off from the source of life. The boundaries you thought defined you were arbitrary lines drawn in infinite space. The walls you thought separated you from others were imaginary barriers in seamless consciousness. You are not in the universe. You are the universe expressing itself as you. You are not separate from other people. You are the same consciousness appearing as different personalities. You are not cut off from nature. You are nature becoming aware of itself. You are not isolated from the divine. You are the divine temporarily playing at being human. This is not a belief system or a philosophy. This is the recognition of what is most fundamentally true about your actual experience right now. You were never separate. You could never be separate. The very one who thought they were separate is itself an appearance in the non-separate wholeness that is your true nature. The search for connection ends when you realize you were never disconnected. The search for unity ends when you see that there was never any real multiplicity. The search for enlightenment ends when you recognize that the seeker and the sought were never two different things. You are what you've been looking for. You are where you've been trying to get to. You are who you've been trying to become, not as a separate individual who finally achieved something, but as the recognition that there was never anyone separate to achieve anything in the first place. You were never separate. You are the very consciousness in which the illusion of separation arises and dissolves. You are the awareness that dreams the dream of being an individual, and then awakens to its true nature as the undivided wholeness of existence itself.